Hi everyone, my name is Jen. I'm an author and a book reviewer, and before we moved house in April, I was trying to work out what videos I wanted to film when my books were likely to still be in boxes, and there are a couple of vlogs that I thought of doing, and one of them was filming a most anticipated releases reading vlog, which is what this is. However, when I film reading vlogs, what I tend to do is I'll start reading the books and then I'll also film B-roll footage of me cooking or going on walks, just life bits to insert between the book chat. But as you will know, I didn't read anything for about a month, but I had all the good intentions of starting, so I did film the B-roll footage. I just didn't read anything. Now I could insert that B-roll footage and just pretend that that's from now, but it just feels a bit weird to do that. So I'm just disclosing the fact that the bookish chat portions of this video are filmed now, and then the nature walks, the cooking bits were all filmed what feels like an eternity ago, but was actually only probably the beginning of May. So I have filmed a couple of videos this year with my most anticipated book releases, and I will link that in the description box down below, or rather those in the description box down below. I have chosen 3 to read in this video. It was really hard to narrow them down, so I thought I would talk you through a couple more that I considered reading for this video, and if you would like me to do a part 2 vlog to this, and there are particular books that you would really like to hear my thoughts on, then you can request that in a comment down below. And if there are enough of them, then I will add that video to the list. So the 3 that I've decided to read within this video are Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I have really loved her short stories in the past. She is the author of a short story in the anthology Outsiders, which I was also part of, and I just really adore how lyrical her writing is. This is a queer love story where one wife is sent to investigate something at the bottom of the ocean, which is a theme that I enjoy, and when she comes back she is not the same. And when I'd heard about this, it really gave me vibes of Vigil, which is a crime series that I absolutely loved. I actually don't think it's going to be like that at all, apart from the theme of queer women and one of them going into a submarine, but I don't know, I still end up thinking about that one. So this is one of them that I'm going to read. Then I'm going to be reading Louise O'Neill's new book. This is her book for grown-ups, because she also writes YA. This is the cover because it's a proof copy. This is Idol, which is now out, and this is about online culture and friendship and toxic things, and I think it's going to give me anxiety reading it. It just sounds like it's going to be extremely tense. I will talk about it more once I've read it. I don't want to talk about these too much because I'll just be repeating myself later on. And then this is Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi. I adored Pet, and this is a prequel to Pet, but I think can be read as a standalone. So Pet was set in a world where evil things had been banished and defeated by angels. It kind of gave me vibes of Angels in America meets, I don't know, like Stranger Things or something. It was intense. And then it was all about how humans embody evil and how maybe we don't look for it in the places that we should. So it was children saving themselves and then telling adults that they need to be better. So this goes back in time when demons were everywhere, I think, and people were trying to defeat them. So I don't know what this is going to be like, but I'm very, very excited. And then the other ones that I could have picked, we have got this one by Yoko Tawada, which I actually am going to be reading in the next week or so. So I'll be including it in my end of month wrap up regardless. This is Scattered All Over the Earth, and it's translated from the Japanese by Margaret Mitsutani, and this is a novel about a world where Japan no longer exists. It's under the sea due to climate crisis, and all of its inhabitants have been, as the title says, scattered all over the earth. And this is one of those inhabitants talking about their memories of Japan and trying to remember its language. And I am getting vibes of The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa, and I just have really high hopes for that one. This is Companion Piece by Ali Smith, which is the 5th book, the follow-on to her seasonal quartet. And then we've got Briefly a Delicious Life by Nell, which is a ghost story. It is set in the 1800s. It's about Chopin and George Sand, and they go to a monastery and they either fall in love with a ghost that haunts it or the ghost falls in love with them, and I just think that sounds brilliant. And then this is a short story collection by Sayaka Murata, which is translated from the Japanese by Jenny Tapley Takamori. It's called Life Ceremonies, and if you have read any of her work in the past and you have some idea of what to expect from these short stories, this one's out in July. So I'm going to leave that one for this video because it isn't out yet. All three of the most anticipated books that I'm reading for this vlog have been released. So if you like the sound of them as I talk about them, you can now go out and purchase them or find them at your local library. This video is also sponsored by Skillshare, but we'll talk about that later. Is there anything else I needed to say in the introduction to this video? I don't think so. So I will leave you with a clip from a walk on Hampstead Heath when I went when it was raining and the rhododendrons were out and the bluebells, and it was just very, very beautiful. So I'll insert that here and I'll be back with Bookish Chat soon. Hi, I feel like I'm coming to you with slight pirate energy today, which is fitting because I'm here to talk about Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I mean, this has no pirates in it, but it's mostly about the sea, so there is some tenuous link. And speaking of pirates, when are we getting Our Flag Means Death in the UK? Does anybody know? Because I really want to watch it and it's bugging me that it doesn't have a UK release date. Anyway, I have read Our Wives Under the Sea. This is a proof cover. As I said, all the books I'm talking about in this video are now out. And this just was, I'm going to use the word beautiful. I know some people don't like that because it can mean different things to different people in the context of a book. What do you mean by a beautiful book, Jen? Okay, it is very rich in its language. It is very descriptive. The prose makes you feel as though you are lost at sea because it's very much as though the story is treading water, like the characters are treading water, because they don't really know what's going on. So it's got this ethereal quality to it that makes you feel a bit breathless and a bit out of your depth and all of the other puns that you want to come up with. So what is it about? This is about a woman called Miri, whose wife Leah, she thought, was lost at sea. She went on an expedition in a submarine and they were only supposed to be gone for a couple of weeks, and then it was several months and she heard nothing. Then she gets a call from the centre, which is Leah's place of work, saying, oh, Leah is home, she's been quarantined, she's ready to collect now. So Miri goes to collect Leah and bring her home, but her wife is not really her wife anymore. It's almost like she's made out of water. She wants to live in the bath all the time. Her skin is becoming translucent, like she's a fish that lives at the bottom of the ocean. And Miri can't get any closure or any information on what has happened to Leah, and this is making everything a million times worse. The first sentence is the best first sentence. The deep sea is a haunted house. That's just great. In fact, actually, that's only the first bit of the sentence. The deep sea is a haunted house, a place in which things that ought not to exist move about in the darkness. Miri has done a deep dive, again, puns, into trying to find out as much information about the sea as she possibly can. So she's become really fascinated with the different types of fish that you can find right at the bottom of the sea. She falling with my words. She joins a grief forum, and she also joins a forum for women who want to pretend that their husbands are astronauts who've been lost in space, and they make up loads of facts about their partners and wonder when they're going to come home. So they've just created these entire fictional lives for themselves. This book, because of the nature of it, it doesn't have much plot at all. And at first I was a little bit frustrated with that. Then at various points I think I was frustrated with it because I felt as though it needed more momentum. But I can absolutely see that that's the point. There isn't any momentum because the characters don't have any answers and Leah isn't getting better and everything is very overwhelming. I think I would have liked, because we jump between Miri in the present day and Leah when she was in the spaceship in the submarine. I would have liked more fleshed out bits of the submarine, I think, though I recognise that that was deliberately kept in the dark a bit so that we could feel as though we were in the same position as the characters and experience it with them. I mentioned in the introduction that this reminded me a little bit of Vigil in premise, and it does. It also reminds me of that Korean drama that I've forgotten the name of, but it's about people who go into space and then they find something awful in a spaceship. There, I'll put the poster for that TV show here. There are bits of this that reminded me of Shape of Water as well. I adored the writing style of it. It is haunting and it is deeply unsettling, and I think the ending just really pulled everything together for me. And obviously I don't want to talk about that because spoilers, but the ending made me feel at peace about the feelings that I had sometimes about pacing in the book. It made me feel really confident in the entire book that this had all come to this ultimate conclusion, and I don't know, I felt like I just breathed at the end. The whole thing is so tense. Yeah, I would really recommend this book. The prose, as I said, is just my cup of tea. I stopped underlining at one point because it's just all so wonderful. Pick up a copy if the premise entices you. The next B-roll footage that you're going to see is a walk that I did after a hospital appointment in town. Most of the appointments that I go to are at two different hospitals, which are both on the Thames, so that's obviously very nice to see. So after I left one of them, I walked along past Tower Bridge and then went up so I could walk part of the way home through, what would you even call it? It's through the courts. There's a whole section for like solicitors and barristers just near the city off Fleet Street. And you can go through the gardens there and then up past Lincoln's Inn Fields and up through Holborn and stuff like that. But it was just all very beautiful and very quiet. And there was some lovely wisteria. So I will insert that here. I thought you would appreciate this bit of information. We've been looking after Lola and I just went into the other room, and instead of sitting in her dog basket, she decided that she was going to make a home in the basket where we keep our throws and stuff, and that just tickled me. Anyway, hi, it's a couple of days later and I have finished reading another book. It is Idle by Louise O'Neill, and I don't know when I last read a book that made me so incredibly anxious, but in the best way, because this book is just full of complicated characters who make decisions that are absolutely infuriating. And I kept on thinking, whose side am I on and who do I sympathise with and why? And then I would think I'd made a decision and then the character would do something else and I would just be outraged. By the end, I guess I didn't hate everybody, but everyone was so flawed. Everyone was just, they were making their own stories so much more complicated than they needed to be. They dug themselves into such holes, which is stressful, but makes for a really good story. So this is about a woman called Samantha Miller who has become a bit of an internet sensation. I'm always a little bit wary of people who write about social media because it can be really reductive, but Louise has not made it reductive at all. So Samantha Miller is an internet sensation. She's turned herself into this kind of wellness guru, is telling people how they should live their lives, how they can look like her. And I use the word guru deliberately because that's a term that she uses about herself and her team use about herself. And she's been called out a lot for appropriation when it comes to spirituality. She has been put on this pedestal and she has been called out a little bit in the past for things that she has done, but she is currently on this high. And she's just released a new book. And in that book, there's an essay about a time when she slept with a woman when she was a teenager, when she slept with another teenage girl when she was a teenager. And then the woman now, who is the person that she talked about in the essay, even though she didn't name in the essay, emails her and says, "That's not how I remember that memory. You took advantage of me and now you've written about it and I am furious." So Samantha is in crisis mode because she thinks that this person is going to out themselves online and say that, Samantha is a liar and she said all these things about me and they're not true. And Samantha has really convinced herself that this woman, Lisa, is incorrect, that they did share this really passionate experience. And why is she now saying this? Is it because she's embarrassed because she had this queer moment as a teenager? Does she not want her husband to find out? And then the deeper we get into this, we realize that it's much messier than that. And I can't really tell you more about it because that would give too much away. But if I was going to do book maths on it, which I love to do, I would say that it shares similar tones to Underbelly by Anna Whitehouse, which is again about female friendship, internet culture, and the toxic nature that can sometimes be unearthed when we are online. I would also say it felt like a book form of a true crime podcast or documentary about online celebrity culture. I found the beginning a little bit, it's not slow, but it took me a while to get into it because I think right at the beginning you are in Samantha's world where everything is a little bit delusional and you don't particularly want to be there because it feels fake, because it is fake. And then the more you get into it and that gets stripped back, the more compelling everything becomes. And I would say probably from about a quarter of the way through right to the end, I could not put this book down. So I only say that if you start reading it and think, this feels a little bit surface level at the beginning. It's deliberate, and then you definitely get beneath the surface and experience things you possibly don't want to experience. I only say content warnings for eating disorders and also for self-harm and sexual assault as well. Louise handles these topics brilliantly and has been very open in the past with her experience of eating disorders as well. So I just was completely, flabbergasted by this book in the best way possible. I would very much recommend it, and I was definitely correct about it being like a most anticipated book, as in one that I was going to really, really enjoy. There is so much to sink your teeth into. So that was that. I am now going to insert a video of a walk that we went on along Regent's Canal, again back at the beginning of May, but it was the first time that I'd walked along Regent's Canal since like early 2020, and it was a little bit emotional because it's a walk we used to go on most weekends, I think. Well, at least once a month we would do this walk, and it's just a lovely walk to do. So I felt very, very happy and tearful to be doing that walk again. And I have thought that actually what I would maybe like to do is to do some walking and reading vlogs, which I used to do in the past, where I listened to an audiobook and I would go on a walk, show you the walk and talk to you about the book that I was listening to. And I thought I might take you on some Frida Klein specific walks, because she talks about walking a lot in the Frida Klein series, and mostly along Regent's Canal, and also like in Hampstead, and following the secret rivers of London, like the Fleet. And those are areas that I walk around a lot anyway, and it would be nice to kind of have a bit of purpose in my wandering, and maybe show you some Frida Klein haunts. So I may do that in the future, but anyway, here is a clip of a walk along Regent's Canal. On the screen at the moment, you can see a speed through video of me making a jackfruit biryani, which is apt because I am here voiceover wise to tell you that this video is very kindly sponsored by Skillshare, and Skillshare is a place where you can learn to make recipes if that's something that you would like to learn about. They're an online learning community with thousands of classes on pretty much anything you can think of, from cooking to calligraphy and building a website and how to kickstart a freelance career. I have been working with Skillshare ever since I started this channel about 8 years ago, because I think that what they do is fantastic. All of their videos are broken down into manageable chunks, so you can slot them into whatever your day happens to look like. They're uploading new classes all the time. All of them are captioned. There are community areas where you can chat with other people who are taking classes if you would like to, or you can keep yourself to yourself. And a class that I have been going back to, which is one I watched for the first time a couple of years ago, but more recently again because we've moved house, is a class on interior design called Style Your Space: Creative Tips and Techniques for Interior Design by Emily Henderson. I think it's fun to kind of know the inverted commas rules of a room, even if it means you're going to break them, but just reminding yourself of some of the basic things to think about, such as color and textures and light and all of that stuff, and then combining it with the things that you really love and creating a space that works for you. I have been painting certain rooms and slowly bringing our house, I was going to say to life, that sounds dramatic, that's not what I mean, but making our house our home. And there's still a lot of work to do, but I have begun, and that is the important thing. So if there's something that you would like to learn more about for fun, or if there's a skill you would like to hone or take on in your career, Skillshare have something for everyone, and they have offered a 1 month free trial to you. So the first 1,000 people to use the link in the top of the description box down below, or my code Jen Campbell, will get a 1 month free trial of Skillshare. Click on that link, go over there and check them out. I promise you won't be disappointed. And thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Oh, it is bright this morning, but it's also much colder, which is great because it's been far too hot these past few days. And this morning there is a lovely breeze. I mean, I'm even wearing a thicker hat. It is early in the morning. It will get much warmer. I will have to change into fewer clothes, but right now the temperature is great. And my chair has arrived, my office, my armchair, and I love her. You can't really see her that well, but I love her, she's great, she's very comfortable. And I finished reading Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is a companion novel, a prequel to Pet, which I read late 2020 and was one of my favourite books of the year. It wasn't a top favourite, but it was definitely a book that I loved. That book is about a young teenager called Jam, and she is trying to save her friend Redemption from a monster that's in his house, and she ends up communicating with this creature that comes out of a painting who turns out to be an angel. And it's a wonderful, twisted, intense magical realism novel looking at trauma, and it's just fantastic. Something that was in the back of my mind when I read that book, and not really as a reader but as someone who works in the publishing industry, was who is the audience here? Like, who is this book written for? Because initially when I had been pitched it, it was as a middle grade book. And I would say if it was the upper end of middle grade, then yes, readers, 11, 12, 13 could happily read it. But I think in the end and later it was more marketed as a YA novel, which is possibly more apt, so for teenagers. And then this one is definitely for an older audience again. So that's reflected in the main characters who are older in this. They're 17, 18, 19. And then on the first page of this book, we do have swearing, which I think is to indicate to any parents or readers, FYI, this is for an older audience, just in case you thought it wasn't. I do find that a slight odd choice because I feel like the audience for Pet and this are slightly different. You could grow up to read this book, I suppose, since reading Pet. But that's just something that I find a little bit jarring. It's a minor point, but it was playing on my mind a little bit. And because it's for an older audience, we do have more sexual references and there's more of a focus on romance, which is not really my thing. And one of the main reasons why I don't tend to gravitate towards YA and tangled relationships and all of that stuff. So because of that, I didn't actually love this book as much as Pet, but I did enjoy it. So let's talk about why. Bitter, Jam's mother, though we have no context for Jam in this book because she doesn't exist yet. Bitter is at a school called Eucalyptus, and a lot of lost kids and kids who have been thrown out of home by their families for being queer have found a place of solace in Eucalyptus. The queer representation in this is wonderful, as it is in Pet, and like within Pet, there's great disability representation in this too. I think what I really loved about Bitter was the context it gave to Pet, because we got to learn a lot more about the angels. You could definitely read this book without having read Pet first, but I think I would still say, maybe because it's my favourite, that I would personally recommend you go to Pet first. The school that Bitter goes to, Eucalyptus, is in the centre of a city that's really fraught with violence. And there's a lot of protest that's going on because of that, discussion of police brutality as well. And my favourite thing about this book is the conversation that it has around who should protest and what is protesting and what role can you take, and making sure that everybody feels included in that resistance, depending on what they feel most comfortable with, what they can offer, what their strengths are, just making sure that everybody feels valued. And that sense of community in this book, a collective nature of of hope was really, really wonderful. For instance, Bitter, like Jam in Pet, which makes sense because Jam is her daughter, Bitter has a lot of anxiety and doesn't feel comfortable at the beginning of the book going out to protest in person, and we explore her resistance through art. So we get to see lots of different people's perspectives and what they have to offer to the movement, and why all of these different things are relevant and should be supported and applauded. As I said, it has great representation of disability as well in various different forms, and Ube, who is the leader of the childhood resistance in this book, is a wheelchair user, and at one point he's confronted with an angel who wants to heal him, and that exchange was just fantastic. So let me read a bit of that to you. "Would you like to be healed, child?" Uber stared back at the angel, his face blank. "What?" Vengeance reached a long, smoky limb out to the boy, yellow eyes intent. "So you may walk." Bitter could almost feel Alex's hackles rise as she took a step towards the angel, her fists tight. Uber flinched and moved away from Vengeance's reach. "No," he said. "Why would you even ask that?" Alex cut in sharply. "There is nothing wrong with Uber," she said, and the rest of the Azata kids murmured in agreement, even Hibiscus. The angel's eyes flickered between the humans. It seemed confused. "He does not wish to be whole?" Blessing put her hand to her mouth, aghast. The air in the room was sharp now, tense. Alex took a deep, furious breath, but Uber shook his head slightly at her and swiveled his chair around, bringing himself up to the angel. Vengeance towered above him, inhuman and terrifying, but Uber's face was calm. When he spoke, his voice rolled through the space like the night sky was pulled out of his mouth, strong and certain. "I am not broken," he said. "I am already whole." So there are great moments like that in this book, and I think I would have enjoyed it more if more of the focus had been on the friendship group and staying together. There was a lot more action, I would say, than was in Pet, but I still did enjoy this book very much, and I would recommend it to fans of Pet, and I would be interested to hear whether you enjoyed this one as much as Pet, more, less. Tell me in a comment if you happen to have picked it up. And I can see there being more in this series as well, filling up the gap between this book and Pet if Akwaeke Emezi fancied doing that, and I may check that out. So thank you for watching this vlog. I have now finished reading the 3 books, and I've enjoyed them all for various different reasons. I was thinking, should I rank them? And I think they're all so different. I will say that Idol and Our Wives Under the Sea were books that I enjoyed more than Bitter, but I can't really separate those two. I really loved Our Wives Under the Sea for its lyrical language, and I loved Idol for how tense it was, even though it stressed me out. And I really did enjoy Bitter for the way that it enhanced my reading of Pet. So I would love to know what books you are most looking forward to, any most anticipated releases that you have read this year. Did they live up to your expectations? Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. If you would like to check them out, that'd be great. Links and information are right at the top of the description box down below. If you're new to my channel and would like to subscribe, that would be very kind. And if you enjoy my content and fancy supporting me on Patreon, details are also in the description box down below. Sending lots of love to you all, and I'll see you very soon.